Hi, welcome back to the SDG Media Zone. We're here at LDC 5 in Doha, Qatar. And we're happy to have our next session here to talk about addressing development challenges through solidarity. It is my great pleasure to introduce our moderator of the session, Marina Ponti, Global Director, UN SDG Action Campaign. Marina, over to you.
Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening for people watching us, and it's such a pleasure to be here today talking about partnership and solidarity with the European Commissioner for International Partnership, Jutta Urpilainen. So before, we have a few questions that I would like to ask you, but before, let me just share with everyone a video on our Flip the Script campaign, which talk about turning a challenge into a possibility, turning apathy into action, turning fear into hope. So please, let's watch together this video. Thank you. So we are here today in Doha, and we are at the fifth conference for the least developed countries. So in this very complex international context that we are living in, what it means to be a least developed countries from your perspective?
Well, I think, of course, we have an official definition for least developed countries. But how I would define LDCs is really, those are our friends who are most vulnerable for the external shocks. And that's why we have to help them. We have to create partnerships with them in order to strengthen their resilience, their strategic autonomy, and help them to develop their societies to be more sustainable. So this is the definition for me, and I'm very, very delighted to be in Doha today. You know that I'm a great fan of Sustainable Development Goals. They have been my compass since I started as a commissioner 3 years ago. And I think this has to be also a message we send from this conference, that we have not given up. We are heading to the SDG Summit in autumn, and we need political and financial recommitment from the political leaders around the world to the SDGs.
Thank you, Commissioner. I mean, you said something very important about turning vulnerability into resilience. And I think that this conference is really a forum that can help towards that. And you also mentioned the SDG Summit in September, which is, of course, is a critical milestone for all of us here in Doha and also people watching us from all over the world. What is, in your view and from your perspective, the single most important action that can be taken for the LDC to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals?
Well, I think now we have a very good program of action, which is endorsed.
Yes.
Now we have to take care of the implementation. And we know that it's easier to approve and prepare political programs than implement them. The implementation phase is always the most difficult one, the most difficult phase. And that's why I think it's important that we really support our LDC friends and partners to create their own national development plans and then support them to implement those national development plans. So we need coordination and cooperation also among donors, among international actors at the country level in order to support our partners. But my main goal as a commissioner and also for the EU is really not to create new dependencies. Because what we have learned in the middle of the COVID, but also because of the Russia's aggression against Ukraine, we have too much dependencies. Africa imports still 99% of the vaccines it uses, 94% of the medicines it uses. Africa is too dependent on the import in many fields. And that's why we have to support the resilience and improve the strategic autonomy in those LDC countries so that they could be stronger, they could be more autonomous, and they could be also more self-reliant so that, they are not dependent on us.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think you mentioned a very important point about the focus on implementation. Implementation goes hand in hand with accountability, so we are also working, and there is a forum here led by civil society about really holding everyone accountable to the commitment. And also you mentioned the importance of partnership, or really supporting LDC country to become, fully independent, from external partner. I think this is a very crucial element. And again, looking at September at the SDG Summit, which is, in your view and from your perspective, the biggest obstacle to the agenda that we all, share, and it's our North Pole, the SDGs?
Because we are living in the multiple crises, in a perfect storm, like Secretary General has described it, I think the challenge is that whether there still is a political support and commitment to SDGs. And what I expect from the SDG Summit in autumn is really this kind of recommitment from the political leaders worldwide to the SDGs, but also to the financing side. Because we know that, of course, SDGs are a kind of policy framework for all of us, including us in Europe. And by the way, we are doing our first voluntary review on SDGs within the EU, and we are going to publish that and announce that then, or present that in July in New York. So that's the policy framework. But in order to really achieve those goals, we need money, we need funding. And I'm a former finance minister myself, and I have to be honest. We are not able to achieve those goals only with public funding, even though we are ready to increase our ODA funding to, for instance, to LDC countries. But we need also private sector involvement. We need private investments, and we need also private funding. And that's why we created Global Gateway Strategy in the EU in order to get also private investments in our partner countries so that, through the private investments we could create more jobs, boost economic growth, and also, of course, support their sustainable development.
So thank you. I think you reminded us of the importance of the partnership, which is actually the goal 17, and the importance of joining forces. I mean, some of our, basic principle is that we can only achieve the SDGs is if everyone takes action. World leaders, local governments, civil society, private sector, and individual. And you mentioned about the importance in September to recommit at the political level to the SDGs and be reassured we are leading a global movement which is growing. The people are standing behind the Sustainable Development Goals because the SDG reflect the aspiration and the goals of the people, for the people and for the planet. So thank you, Commissioner, for being with us. And before closing this interview, I just want to make you part of the launch of an SDG digital art exhibit with our partner Code Green, which we launched today very proudly. And I'll just ask to show some of these amazing artwork from emerging artists, or also more famous, that actually convey the message of flip the script, of transformation, to give a signal of hope for a better future for all. Let's all enjoy. Thank you, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Bye.